Hi, boys and girls. Today we're going to segue from graphs and we're going to start talking about what to do with a data set when you just want to share information. So I don't want to visually look at it, I just want to share it. Okay? There's a lot of times that you'll hear people sharing data. Okay? As you go through school, you're going to hear people talk about grade point average. Okay, and that's just a representation of a lot of numbers, a lot of grades put together. Okay, you might hear people talk about batting averages or the average price of gas. And that's when you take a lot of data and you use one number to represent it. And that one number you use to represent it is what we call the average. Okay, the world calls that one number the average. Mathematically, the average is actually called the mean. And the mean is just when we take one number to represent an entire data set. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the mean. We're also going to talk about the median, which is the middle number. And then we're going to talk about the mode. The mode is the number that's used the most often in a data set. Okay? All right, so looking in our book on lesson 12.6, here's our problem. It says, Kara made a paper airplane. She flew her airplane 6 times and recorded how long it stayed in the air during each flight. The times in seconds for the flights are 5 8/10, 2 9/10, 6 7/10, 1 6/10, 2 9/10, and 4 7/10. What are the mean, median, and mode of the data? So really, boys and girls, that's asking us, what is one number that you could pick to say about Kara's airplane instead of listing all of those data values? Okay, so let's talk about each of those. The mean is the sum of the data. Remember that sum means to add. So the sum of the data items divided by the number of data items. So if we took all of those numbers, added them together, and then divided them, which means kind of balances it all out, what would that number be? Okay, so here we have 5 8/10, 2 9/10, 6 7/10, 1 6/10, 2 9/10, 4 7/10. Remember that fraction bar, that means divide. We're going to divide all of those by the 6 because there's 6 data values. So I'm just going to quickly add those up. 5 8/10 plus 2 9/10 plus 6 7/10 plus 1 6/10 plus 2 9/10 plus 4 7/10. All of that equals 24 6/10 divided by 6, which is 4 1/10. So that number, boys and girls, represents the mean or average time that Kara's airplane was in the air. Okay, that's one measure of center. Okay, if you were going to use one number to describe it, we could use the mean or the average, which is 4 1/10. That's pretty good for flying a paper airplane. Mine usually stay in the air for like 1 second. Okay? Another way that we can describe the data set is we can use the middle value, okay, which is called the median. The median is the middle value when the data are written in order. So if we were to take our data values and write them in order from least to greatest, what would be in the middle? Okay, and our book has done that here for us. So 1 6/10, 2 9/10, 2 9/10, 4 7/10, 5 8/10, 6 7/10. Now, the way that I like to find the median, boys and girls, is I like to just use my fingers and just find out what's in the middle. Okay? Sometimes, though, if you have an even number of data values, there's not just one number in the middle. There's actually two, like we have here. These two numbers are right in the middle. Okay, so I need to find the middle of those data values. What would be right there? That's going to be the median of my data set. Okay, so the data set has an even number of values. So the median is the mean of the two middle values. Remember, the mean is when I add those together and divide by how many data values there were. In this case, there's 2 in the middle. Okay, so to find the mean of the two middle values, we would add those two together, 2 9/10 plus 4 7/10. We're going to divide it by 2. Okay, so 2 9/10 plus 4 7/10 equals 7 6/10. This should say, actually, instead of plus, that should say equals. And we're going to divide that by 2. And 7 6/10 divided by 2 is 3 8/10. So of this data set, boys and girls, if we wanted to pick the median, the middle of those two numbers would be 3 8/10. Okay? I like the median, but I usually like the median when there's only an odd number of data values. It makes it a lot easier. Okay, and then finally, boys and girls, the mode is the data value or values that occur the most often. Okay, so looking at our data values, boys and girls, I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to erase this real quick. Okay, so here's all my data values. Do you see how these two data values, they occur twice? Everything else is only there one time. Okay, so we would say that the mode, or the one that occurs most often, would be 2 9/10. 2 9/10 occurs twice, and all the other values occur once. So 2 9/10 is the mode. Now, there's something super important to learn about the mode. Sometimes, boys and girls, there's not a mode because all the data values occur exactly the same amount of times. Okay, if that's the case, you need to state that there is no mode. Okay, you can't say that the mode is 0. Okay, I want you to think about that. Why can't we say the mode is 0? Okay, the reason we can't say the mode is 0 is because 0, boys and girls, is a number. And that would mean that 0 occurred the most often. Okay, and so we need to make sure and say there is no mode, and not that the mode is 0. Okay. All right, so on example 1, we're going to practice all of those again. We're going to find the mean, the median, and the mode. And I want you to remember, these are ways that we could represent a data set using just one value. Okay? All right, so example 1 says, Miss O'Donnell's class has a fundraiser for a field trip to a wildlife preservation. 5 of the donations are $15, $25, $30, $28, and $27. Find the mean, median, and mode of the donations. Okay, so if we're going to find the mean, boys and girls, or the average, we take all of our data values, we add them together, and then we divide by how many data values we had. Okay, so we had $15, $25, $30, $28, and $27. And there were 5 data values. So all of those added together, and then we're dividing by 5. 15 plus 25 plus 30 plus 28 plus 27 equals 125. Divided by 5 is $25. Okay, so the mean or the average of our data set would be $25. Okay, If we're looking for the median, we're going to take all of our data values and put them in order from least to greatest. So 15 would be the smallest, then 25, 27, 28, and 30. Now, this time we only have 5, which I like because that means that's an odd number. That means there's one exactly in the middle. So the median, or the middle, is $27. And then finally, boys and girls, finding the mode. When we look at our numbers, they all only occur one time, which means there is no mode. Okay, it says if all of the values in a data set occur with equal frequency, then the data set has no mode. The data set has no repeated values, so there is no mode. Now, this is a good example of when 0 would definitely be not appropriate. Okay, because 0 would mean that $0 appeared the most often, and it didn't appear at all in our data set. Okay, so today we're going to get some practice with measures of center. Okay, if you have questions, reach out to your teacher.